citadel founded with great vision, where character learning is the mission. It's a fountain for all who thirst for knowledge, the human resource to fetch. Shine with your light, our great citadel, in truth and service, in truth and service. Lagos State University, let's all shine for humanity. Together, lift higher banner, joining hands, every tongue together, in radiance, and in every cloud. We are Lasu, and we are proud. We are Lasu, and we are proud.
So I want to welcome the general public and Lasu community to the 15th Lasu virtual public lecture. The topic of today's lecture is ICT in post-COVID-19 world, the realities, challenges, and opportunities. The chairman and the chief host of today's lecture is our Vice Chancellor in person of Professor Olanrewaju Adigun-Fagbon, PhD, SAN, and NPOM. Is a professor of environmental law and a senior advocate of Nigeria. Our Vice Chancellor won the National Productivity Merit Award in 2019, and that award was given by the President of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari. I'm the moderator for today's lecture. My own name is Benjamin Aribisala. I'm a professor of computer science and the current director of ICT. I'm a member of the Governing Council of Lagos State University and the immediate past Dean of Faculty of Science. Just a little bit of background to what the lecture of today focuses on. Everybody will agree with me, there is no more news that COVID-19 is real and that it kills. It's a very terrible one, and it has actually developed to what we call pandemic. And the situation is not getting better in the developed world. Last week, the death toll actually rose to about 500 per day, though things came down in the UK. But in the developed generally, things are not getting better because it seems as if they are in wave 2. But luckily, in this part of the world, in Nigeria, things are much better. And it's generally believed here that COVID-19 is on its way out, that it will soon be completely over from Nigeria, that is COVID-19 will no more be seen in Nigeria. That is our hope, because things are getting much, much better. And that said, I need to say that we know that no matter the situation, we still have to comply with the COVID-19 protocols until when Nigeria is actually declared free. So the protocols, as we can remember, social distance, wash your hands, and use of face mask, but there is a fact about COVID-19. Some people have the opinion that COVID-19 has given us, both positive and negative effects, that it's got both on our lives, economy and everything. But do you agree with that? Or what is our view? So in this context, our focus today will be on the realities and the challenges together with the opportunities brought by COVID-19. Is it actually true to say COVID-19 has brought some opportunities? We have experts to do justice to that. But our focus is this in relation to ICT. So we have three speakers, specially selected speakers, and one of them is an academic don, the other one is a non-academic staff of our university, and we have the third speaker is from the industry. And I'll be giving us some information about each of them. So I first talk about Professor Manuel Massara. Manuel is a professor of software engineering in Innopolis University, is currently the Vice Dean of International Relations. I need to say quickly something about Manuel. Manuel facilitated the collaboration between Lagos State University and Innopolis University in 2018, which led to signing of MOU and giving of grants or scholarship to 2 PhD students from Computer Science Department in Lagos State University. These 2 PhD students of ours visited Innopolis University on research, and all the bills were paid by Innopolis University. We seriously appreciate Manuel for that help. Manuel and I were colleagues in Newcastle University before I came to Nigeria. Now, I quickly talk about Chief Toyin Oloniteru. Chief is the CEO of Spindle Group and the president crypto economy of Africa, and is a member of the presidential community communication broadband rollout. So a role which gave him the opportunity to actually use his ICT skills to help us in the area of broadband, bandwidth, and communication in Nigeria, not only in the industry, but in in the academic environment as well. I will talk about my colleague, our own person, Mr. Bolaji Alaba, somebody I love so much, Mr. Ojediron, who is a principal system analyst, and we work in the same directorate of ICT. He's a certified forensic examiner and an expert in web development. So, and an expert in digital marketing as well. He's got lots of skills, and today his focus will be on the challenges and opportunities of ICT post-COVID world. Now, I just need to give us some guide as we carry on with the presentation of today. We're going to be having 2 sessions. The first session will be presentation. During that, each of the speakers will have 15 minutes to talk. And then the second session will be question and answer. But the question and answer will be in a way that questions will be sent via the chat menu of Zoom. And questions can start to roll in immediately when the first speaker starts. So, but we want to encourage participants to indicate the names or the name of the person the question is targeting, so that we can know who to answer the question. I need to tell us that all participants will be muted just to reduce noise interference, audio interference, and and please rename your device if it's not named to reflect your name. So I want to wish us a happy listening. To set the ball rolling, I will be inviting Professor Manuel Masara as the first speaker, and he will be presenting on education after COVID-19, the role of ICT. So I'm going to be dropping my screen so that, Manuel, you can please share your screen and give your presentation. Thank you.
Yes, so I can start sharing my screen. You're probably able to see it right now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to spend a few minutes to explain our experience. I mean, Innopolis University is a university that has already experimented quite a lot in terms of new educational methods. It's 8 years old, and surprisingly, we managed to switch online pretty fast in 1 week. Basically, we had 1 week of extra holidays between the end of March and the beginning of April to organize everything, and I think we did pretty okay. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit what we have learned. Today I speak briefly about what is good about the old education and what is good about the new education, how the things can go together, and maybe speculate a little bit on how machines and humanity can cooperate in this post-pandemic world. These are our students, some of our students. Look at them. notice their expression and what they're doing. They're raising a hand. Because now I'm going to show you another picture that looks very similarly. So I think we are good at experimenting new things. We are for 8 years creating new programs, new curricula, new courses, and so on. And we have effectively and quickly switched to online education. Also because maybe we are just a small university of a little bit less than 1,000 students. Look at this picture. This picture I show in my course of the following two pictures I show in my course of theoretical computer science. These are kids that are learning how to compute. And this is the scenario in which Turing was living when he defined the Turing machine. The Turing machine is a model of human computer. You see, these are the human computers. They were mostly women. When at the time before computer, government and the banking system, of course, needed to do computation. There is a hierarchy. Here you can see around that there are also probably supervisors. No, I don't fully understand the structure, but it's clear there are some supervisors, there are some employees, and they are doing some computation, and this computation somehow is then put together. And these are the kids in the school that they look like very much our students. So they still raise hand to get attention, and probably not much changed in the last 100 years in the education system. Of course, we have new instruments, we have internet, but internet didn't change at the core the paradigm of education much for most of the universities in Europe, in Africa, I'm sure, in the United States, in Russia too. There is still this old approach of education having a top-down management, age-based classroom. I mean, there is nothing wrong about it, but maybe in a new world we can foresee that these kind of things can be different. Maybe kids can be organized according to different criteria that not necessarily age. And of course, there is a focus on producing results. This is not going to change. But maybe the society, so the needs of society will change. So maybe we need to change a little bit this model of education. This is one way at looking at things. And to be positive, we have to understand that there is something good in what we have been done so far, obviously, and there is something good in what is coming, in the technology that we have if we use the technology in another way. This is a French drawing from 1920s about something like this, on a forecast of what would have happened in the year 2000. Look, it's pretty interesting. No, it's pretty accurate if you want. And you see on the right here, there is a machine that is eating books, okay? And the guy is cranking in this wheel. And then they are listening some sort of podcast or radio thing. So this is actually it is a very good guess of what's happening right now, or what it's happening this year. I mean, we are teaching our students similarly. Of course, we have video technology. How to put together the old school and the new school to have a better system. Now, when there is a time of change, people are always worried that something is going to develop in something horrible. I'm pretty sure that it was at the time of first industrial revolution. It was always the case when there is a major change that people are afraid that the new will be horrible for some reason. It's up to us to make it horrible or good, of course. And just being afraid and reluctant to change is not a good idea. What we can learn from this experience, what we can put together from the old way and new way. Clearly the human interaction and the proximity of the teacher and of the student is very important. So it's something that we cannot get rid of. I mean, I think it will stay, it has to stay. I mean, we have learned this during this year. And if you are facing the fourth industrial revolution, this revolution will be about the cyber-physical systems. So we'll be somehow in the fraternity, in the vicinance, in the integration of systems and humans in general. I mean, of course, for the smart cities, for the smart transportation, but in particular here for the smart learning, for the smart education. So the education that we are slowly, but not so slowly, developing right now because of the emergency. So of course, all this should affect the way we teach. A brief synthesis of differences between the old educational model and the new educational model. You see there is a switch on the role of the educator from an expert, so to a facilitator. Now we are moving to learner-centered teaching, not the teacher-centered education. So the target age goes from kindergarten to 12, this is the American system, to the lifelong learning. So we want to develop skills all life. And of course, everyone can participate in the educational process. It's not a show of one man and everyone else is silenced. The approach is more holistic. So the development of intelligence that are not only the logical spatial intelligence that typically the current programs are focusing, but there is a lot of emphasis on emotional intelligence, on soft skills. This is already happening. It was happening before 2020. Just there is an acceleration now. And of course, the use of physical devices. Not necessarily students will have to be all the time in one place. What I have learned, what we have learned as an organization during this year, understood definitely that we need to teach differently, somehow differently. We need to assess differently. In particular, running exam is very difficult. Digital content and open educational resources are very important. Teachers have to study. This is always the case, but in particular this year, we understood that there are people that are very reluctant in facing the new challenges, teaching in the different way. Some people actually in our organization even gave up with this challenge. So we need to train, of course, the people. There is a decreased campus experience. So we need to compensate it with something else. The classic final exam is losing importance. We are moving towards some regular assessment. So basically, every week or every 2 weeks, there is a little assessment, and the final exam is a sort of disappearing also because it's difficult to manage in this scenario. So, for example, projects between students should be emphasized more, also as a mechanism for assessment. When I say that we are slowly moving towards the new model of education, is not so slow, because basically this year was a bit traumatic. Maybe for Innopolis not that much, but basically imagine like a teenager that has to grow up and behave like an adult overnight. We felt a little bit like this. We felt that there was something in the air, some technology, some paradigm, some ideas that were. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, there was freezing a little bit.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, there was a delay in the communication.
No problem.
So we felt a little bit shaken because, of course, all this stuff was already there, but we had suddenly to put everything in place in 1 week. So it was a little bit traumatic experience. But then we managed better. And what we think, in particular, what I think here is that this experience is here to stay. So the online education is not going to disappear. It's not just a way to patch an emergency to cope with a situation. It is the way of teaching the next way of teaching. I think this will happen in 4 moves. Now I think in Innopolis, we are at the step 3. The step in which now it's difficult for us to move back. So we moved suddenly in 1 week or 2 weeks, we moved to online teaching. Then online teaching, especially in Tatarstan, is not mandatory. We can teach in mixed format, but it's extremely difficult for next semester to move back to the classic education because the students are demanding some elements of online education or even full online education. So we are in the step 3. And from next year or in the next couple of years, practices of online education or blended education, so a mix of offline and online, will become just part of the regular routine. And we can see now the resistance of students in going back offline. So this is not something that is desirable. To some extent, it's also for teachers. So we need to find ways to mix the good aspects of both the ways of teaching. Pros and cons. Well, obviously, if you can teach or learn from wherever you want, it's very good for the planet. Less movement, it's cheaper. You can is more affordable. You can organize your schedule because you can watch at recorded classes. It doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to rent an expensive apartment in the center of the city where the university is, for example, what I did in Bologna. But it's more difficult to enforce the discipline. Learning is about consistency. You don't learn because once in a while when you want, you go and try to learn a language or to learn a sport. No, it requires consistency, regularity, discipline. And this is very difficult to enforce for students and for teachers when they are far away. I saw already people, students, teachers, that they attend many meetings at the same time on same device, on different device. You know, they just pretend that they just think they can attend several meetings or several classes. Obviously, research clearly says that they cannot. So, you know, in fact, you are anywhere, you are everywhere, and you are nowhere. So this is another talk that I will do in future, but I think artificial intelligence can also help. Turing, in his article of 1958, was clearly separating humans and machines. So they have distinctive features. And the Turing test, the imitation games, was there to determine where this line is. But with cyber physical systems, this Turing line is not so, and will not be so sharp anymore. So we are going towards a way of educating in which students are attached to device all the time. Maybe this device can become part of their physical body at some point. So it's very interesting now, this speculation, but it's very interesting now to see how this can support job, smart work, and education in general. Just to conclude, briefly, one major important comment: we need to avoid this student in a learning cocoon approach, because the community still counts. Community always counted, and community will also count in the online education system, in the online world, in the post-COVID world. And online teaching is here to stay, but we cannot fully replace a very old, millennia-old practice such as classes. Frontal classes, to some extent, will survive this situation, but will be integrated, probably in something like blended format. Definitely, we agree that some elements of our current education systems are outdated with respect to the job environment, with respect to the skills that are necessary for the students when they graduate. And given the fourth industrial revolution going on, we need to think, we as an educators, we need to think how the technology can blend with the humans, with the students, with the teachers, in order to have increased, improved way of education. In Innopolis, we are experimenting this. Many thousands of universities in the world, they are experimenting this right now. And it will be nice to meet in 1 or 2 years' time again and see if things are really going in this direction, because this is my guess. It's a guess that I'm doing after having spent 1 year in doing this in this university, but maybe others may have different opinions. In general, education has always been about concepts, not about technologies. So technologies that you teach, technology that you use in the room are important, but ultimately we have to transfer principles. We have to transfer ideas to the students. And I think this will not change. That's it from me.
Thank you very much, Professor Manuel Massara. We are so appreciative. I will be calling you to read the questions to you as they call. So we're waiting for people to be sending questions. Well, without much ado, I want to bring Chief Toyin Oloniteru to the podium to make his presentation. Chief. So, Manuel, you may want to stop sharing, and then we take the second speaker. Thank you very much, Manuel.
Thank you.
So, Chief Olonitero, can you share your screen, please?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, brilliant. So we are seeing your screen gradually. Excellent. So you want to be in slideshow mode, please?
Yes. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here and for us to work within time. I would like to leverage on some of the things that have been said already. All of us are aware of what COVID-19 is. So definitely, I'm not going to spend much time on that. We know it's the coronavirus disease and that's affected all of us in that particular regard. But one of the things we need to know is that the World Bank declared it as a pandemic, and people need to be able to relate it with what epidemics and pandemic is. So a pandemic is defined as an epidemic occurring worldwide and over a large distance, crossing international boundaries and usually affecting large number of people, which we all are all aware of in the world. So for an epidemic, it's a widespread occurrence of an infectious disease in a community at a particular time, e.g. A flu epidemic. So COVID-19, as we all know, has impacted a large number of countries and is turning out to be even worse than the critical economic, strategic, and political clashes happening around the world. The outbreak has and is still impacting all industries. Of course, for the purpose of our topic of discussion today and the theme, it includes information and communication technology. So for the purpose of the benefit, because we know that it's an academic environment and we all know what ICT is, information and communication technology is a good way to think about ICT is to consider all uses of digital technology that exist to help individuals, businesses, and organizations use information. ICT covers any product that we store, retrieve, manipulate, transmit, or receive information electronically in a digital form. For example, personal computers, digital televisions, email, robots. So ICT is concerned with the storage, retrieval, manipulation, transmission, and receipt of digital data. Importantly, it is also concerned with the way these different uses can work with each other. In business, ICT is often categorized into two broad types of products. Traditional computer-based technologies, things you can typically do on a personal computer or using computers at home or at work. Digital communication technologies, that is, which allow people and organizations to communicate and share information digitally. So for us to be able to do justice to the realities of ICT in post-COVID era, we need to know what these elements of ICTs are. It has hardware side, which is this hardware aspect of ICT. We have the software aspect of ICT. We have the network side of ICT. We have the telecommunication aspect of ICT, the infrastructure aspect of ICT, outside 1 to 4 that I've listed above, that is people, processes, procedures, policies, law, regulations, and standards are also part of the, we're talking about the realities of ICT, we're actually talking realities of this element. We'll be talking about education and e-learning, e-logistics, supply chain. On Facebook, you can place order. Through WhatsApp, you can place order for this time to deliver to your home or to your offices or to you wherever you are. So realities of ICT in post-COVID-19, which is what we are here to talk about. There must be a structured approach to discuss the realities of ICT in post-COVID-19 world. Here, I will do so using the framework and parametric analysis approach, situational analysis approach that comprises of situational analysis of the Nigeria particular case, the worldwide situation, and specifically Nigeria within the global village system. And this is very, very important because if we don't have this structural approach, then we'll not be able to do effective justice to the theme and subject of discussion. Like I've said, under framework and parametric analysis, framework, short time or near time, medium time, and long time. What is the realities of ICT? Given all those elements I'm talking about earlier in the short time, in the medium time and in the long time. In the short time, the strain on infrastructure network, contractions in consumer spending, disruption to supply chain, reduced availabilities of components, and the all-around financial impact of the coronavirus are taking a toll in the short time. Medium time, the realities of ICT in post-COVID-19 period is positive because we are becoming, there's a transformation stage now. At least in Nigeria, children can now learn, convince people to have e-learning. Of Governor where we work on the e-school program, and a lot of people refuse to comply with it. And we saw what happened in Kaduna State, why a lot of teachers have to be sacked. But today, everybody has done that because we are forced by COVID-19 to do that. Medium time, the realities of ICT post-COVID-19 is possible, like I've said. Most activity will be ICT-based and utilized, whether in the traditional information systems or centralized information systems or in the digital information systems or distributed technology environment. What I mean that in the disruption that we're having as a result of blockchain technology, all nodes will be talking to themselves. So where we have issues before, where a teacher or change their score, that will not happen, because once an examination score is approved by the Senate of a university, for example, all the members, all the people involved have to be concerned before that something can be tampered with, not just a middleman and administrator or some sort of people changing results, and apply to all areas of man and labor. So in the long time, the realities of ICT in post-COVID-19 period will be highly positive as maturity of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and robotics, Internet of Things, blockchain technology, big data analytics, sensors technology, biotechnologies, etc., that are all ICT-based will become order of the day. Driverless car, we're going to be seeing in pilotless planes, unmanned aerial vehicles, and unmanned ground vehicles. So even agriculture saying that young people should go to farm all those farming will be done by robots and with precision guided technology to make sure that it is not going to be an issue. And construction industry, logistics, and supply chain. So in terms of the parameters of the realities in post-COVID-19 world, usage, number of people using ICT or to use ICT, including the demographic change, that will happen because number of people that will use ICT will increase. We are all in technology world, so whether you are educated or not educated, literate or not literate, you are born to use ICT. Explanation on ICT elements, if whether go up, down, or remain the same, these are kind of things we want to look at. Labor turnover, is it up, down, the same in which of the elements areas, innovations and creativity in the ICT sector. Just for example, now you can see a lot of people now, if you want to buy bond, you can go and buy it online as compared to before, and you get to you. Then ICT law, policies, regulations, strategies, and frameworks in Nigeria. So we'll talk about the national digital economy policies and strategy 20 to 2030, which government is working on now, being led by the Federal Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. We have the e-government master plan, Nigeria Data Protection Regulation 2019, and the upcoming Nigeria Data Protection Law, which is going to affect the way we do a whole lot of things. Today, all our hospitals and institutions in the rural areas, they are not data protection compliant because you can see the information. But with the NDPR, this is going to change. National ICT Policy 2012, Nigeria Cloud Policies telling us how we have to do things in the cloud, Nigeria Broadband Plan, Nigeria Cyber Security Policies and Strategy 2020, Nigeria Cybercrime Prevention and Prevention Act, Nigeria Blockchain Adoption Strategy, Blockchain and Fragile Financial Assets, which is going to be telling us the direction of the use of Bitcoins and the altcoins and many of the other coins that will be coming up, National Blockchain Adoption Strategies 2020 Nigeria. So in terms of these realities, we're going to be looking at cloud-based, blockchain, data protections, dual life systems, and many of these that I'm talking about that are listed here, which I've talked about earlier. So institutional analysis in Nigeria, education, innovation, school management systems, and learning management systems, deployment and movement of teaching, learning, and study to the cloud in conformity with the NDPR 2019 and the Nigeria Data Protection Law incoming, health, innovations, hospital administration, and management systems and platform in conformity with the NDPR and the Nigeria Data Protection Law, incoming supply chain, lot of transactions now take place in the cloud and social media sites and other e-commerce platforms. This is increasing as local products, food and not foods, are now sold online and purchased or bought online. Business conduct, both businesses are now conducted online. Training conferences and meetings are now done online and remotely using cloud-based applications such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and others. This is in both private and public sector. Lifestyle. In Nigeria today, the reality is that people are generally live dual life. And when they do that, and when they do that, you have most serious ones being done online with privacy since 2019. The same thing we have business set and formation, and then transport, Uber, Boat, Certify, and then the general solutions, many of it will come up. So in Nigeria, realities, the global type, according to the International Data Corporation IDC, growth in global IT spending is expected to reduce by 3 to 4% by the end of this year, 2020, considering the pessimistic scenario due to the COVID-19 pandemic, while the majority impact is expected to be hardware business, including devices and software, as the spread of coronavirus go beyond the boundaries of Asia. However, the adoption of collaborative applications and cloud services see a positive impact followed by technologies such as security, big data, artificial intelligence, IoTs, where the impact seems relatively small. Second wave of COVID-19 pandemic in Europe and around the world. So you can see that second wave, all of these things having impact on over the top, major private networks, cyber security and data security, cloud services, among others. So you have equipment makers who are aware that there are issues there. Then the realities of Industry 4.0, digital workflow, robotics, automations are no longer goals. They used to be in the past, they are requirements now. IoT devices have offered organizations a path towards preserving revenue stream during the pandemic. Other areas that we see and opt within the global realities as shoppers begin to self-isolate and avoid crowded area. The clear winner is the e-commerce sector, with digital payment taking over a lot faster than the physical payment. You don't need to go to bank now to do a whole lot of these things. So definitely, because a lot of people are using the cloud services, so there will be impact on bandwidth, performance, and networking slides, and this will also make us to think about the issues related to 5G. Social distances and self-isolation also have that impact. So while people are mostly using home Wi-Fi, they will still use their mobile phone for voice communications and all of the other things. In the developed world, for example, the dine-in features and all those things will remain there. So like I have said, new realities, Nigeria new reality within the global world will be driven by its internal needs as new challenges, opportunities, and use cases emerge, driven by the systematic shift in consumer behavior. While almost all the sectors in Nigeria economy will be affected within the global village and the national system, those like earlier identified within Nigeria itself, the following sectors will have new realities: education, health, supply chain, lifestyle, business setup and formation of domain registrations and management industries, aviation and others, setting of aviation business up and with cheap labor, artisanship, because of so many of the dynamics that is taking place there that we know about. Thank you very much. And I'm sure that the remaining things we have will be available for you to download from the university when it is uploaded for more insight into that. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Chief. Just like Professor Manuel, you have kept the time. You finished within the time. So thank you. I'm so much appreciative of that. And that was really a very good talk. So we're going to be taking questions as we carry on. But let's just quickly invite our last speaker for today, Mr. Bolaji Ojediran. So Mr. Ojediran, if you could please share your slides and you can start your presentation. You have 15 minutes to present. Thank you. Okay, I can see this slide is coming up. Thank you. Great.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon once again.
Good afternoon. You're welcome.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity to share, and especially in particular the challenges and the opportunities of ICT in the post-COVID-19 world. Well, like it's been said earlier, COVID-19 is here to stay, and the impact is going to be felt even much more after now, as other pandemics that we have experienced in the world, Ebola, Zika virus, SARS virus, as they've been very impactful on the economy and different areas of the world. We also must be prepared to face the challenges therein. Quickly, there are three major things that post-ICT and post-COVID-19 world allude to. The first is disruption. We have had enough disruption already, and sincerely, we are still going to be having much more disruptions going forward. And the second one is innovation. With every disruption to business processes, to economy, to educational institution, several innovations are coming up to address these disruptions. And definitely with new innovations coming up, there is an onus on us to learn new knowledge. Now, these three things are very key, and they are not just going to be part of what we have experienced in the past month, but they are things that we should be prepared to face in the coming years: disruption, innovation, and new knowledge. Now, what are the challenges of ICT in the post-COVID-19 world? Well, for the sake of time, I just summarized about 4 of them. The first, we have insufficient digital skills. The second, network security threat. The third, inadequate or costly infrastructure. Then there's a deficit in decision data in Africa in particular. Now, let's start from the first one. With this graph, if I can just do a little highlight it a little. Now you can see from the scale of preference here, starting from the social media down to game development, these are different needed skills in this time that we are in. But with the distribution, taking in particular Africa as a case study, we can see that as we project or move down from social media down to some core critical digital skills that are needed now, talking about mobile application development, cybersecurity, human-computer interaction, scientific computing, animation, automation, artificial intelligence, you can see that there's a drop in the skill set adoption, meaning we have lesser people trained or experienced or skilled in this needed area. And now these are things that are very, very much more needed. We need more people that will go into cloud computing, automation. But in Africa, for example, there's a deficit of that, which must be addressed quickly. Well, talking about network security threats, with a study carried out recently, out of the top 10 risks in the post-COVID-19 world in Nigeria, as an example, network security threat or cyber security threat has risen from number 11 to the 4th. Now, it means that this is a matter to contend with. Now that most of our our digital assets have gone to the cloud, then we have to contend with this. And in particular for the education sector, for now, the education sector have been immune, or we have not really experienced much of cyber security threat. But now, the educational sector is a wealth of personal identifiable information. How do I mean? For cyber criminals now, they think of attacking educational institutions as a means of getting, personal data of people, either the donors, students, or faculty of the institution, as a mean point or as a doorway to attack their persons. Recently, it was announced of an attack. In fact, about 27 universities were attacked, according to a report by Wall Street Journal. And their intention is to steal research. Now that we are in the pandemic, a lot of research are going on. Now that we've moved most of our access to the cloud, now security threat is something to contend with. The other challenge, rather, is inadequate and costly infrastructure. Now we know that infrastructure is key, and this is the bedrock, the backbone on which ICT will ride on. And also, this particular challenge, out of a list of several challenges, rose from the 22nd risk to the 6th risk. So this is telling us that this is something we need to pay attention to quickly now. And for us as an educational system or educational sector, it's a great challenge for us. Now that most of our assets, most of the classes and lectures have now moved online, infrastructure is very, very important. Else, we'll get to a point that we keep loading things and we won't be able to cope. So this is one of the things that we need to contend with. Now, the last but not the least is a challenge of a deficit of decision data. Well, for this, it is very clear to us that for the past few months now, data has been king. Well, data has been king all the while, but for now we have seen that the use of data have come to the fore in planning, in projecting how the economy, and in projecting even for businesses. Now, data is not just about how your customer fare, but data is now being used for prediction, that is predictive analysis of data. Policymakers are much more now, really looking forward to use data, to guide them, to help them make, informed decisions. And now it's not just any data, but quality data. A good example is, the health data in Nigeria, for example, which is something that we need to pay much attention to. It's not just about, or it's not when pandemic shows up that we find ourselves in this quagmire to be running around for decision data. So going forward, ICT, one of the challenges we need to face is not just to collect data, but to collect decision-making data and to make them usable, or rather to analyze them for usability. Quickly, I go to opportunities. What are the opportunities that are bound for us going forward post-COVID-19? The first, there is an increased digitization and automation and analysis. This is a huge field of opportunity for every IT enthusiast, in fact, for everybody. I'll be talking more about it. We'll have education beyond boundaries, flexible career opportunities, and improved business continuity. Let me start off with the digitization case. Now, Forbes in April this year, said something that people empowered by automation will bring us out of this crisis, meaning that automation is king, and there's huge opportunity for every individual who can digitize or automate business processes. Naturally, for most people, when you talk about automation or digitizing processes, you think about coding, but now there are several platforms, there are several opportunities, to digitize processes without even having the knowledge of coding. For a good example of that is the UI part. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. But there are several opportunities to do that for organizations. Automation is going to cut down cost eventually. Though at the startup now, it may look as though that you are incurring costs in order to gather infrastructure. But in the long run, it's going to cut down costs. But much more, it's going to provide or build up resilience for businesses. It means businesses can continue, can auto-run. Even when the staffs are not there physically, business processes can surely continue. And with that, there are several tools. Most of them now are even free because of this situation or post-COVID-19. Most of these tools or platforms are free for people to use. And with automation, it provides better accuracy for individual works. It increases our speed and accuracy. And definitely all repetitive tasks that you need physical people to be available to do, all those can be aggregated into a robotic system. I go to the next opportunity, which is education beyond geographic boundaries. And with this, there's one theme I want to talk about. I think let me start with that. That is reskilling. This pandemic, COVID-19, is a skill bias pandemic. How do I mean by this? There are several disruptions going on, like I said earlier. And with these several disruptions, we have to innovate very quick. And innovating very quick means that we have to learn continuously, meaning that the skill you have now is not sufficient tomorrow. So there's a need to reskill every now and then. Now, let me just tie it together with what I said earlier. The skills that are needed now are not just general skills. We need automation complementing skills. How do I mean? What are automation complementing skills? These are skills that require or that automation relies on, skills that automation itself cannot provide. And a good example, you have creativity, you have emotional intelligence, social intelligence. These are skills that you can automate. So these are skills that are needed much more now. I'm still going to talk about it going forward. A good example of education without boundaries is a case of modularization of courses. We have cases where institutions have modularized their MBA courses. For example, you have a particular course in MBA that is needed now, probably business automation. You don't need to sign up for an MBA to learn that, but institutions are floating these courses online, and you can learn just that particular module and come back later, take some other modules, you complete your MBA. So these have provided education beyond boundary, beyond the natural or the usual classroom approach. Reskilling is a must. I go to the next opportunity, flexible career opportunity. And with that, there are tons and loads of opportunity. Quite right, most people will say that this pandemic have caused a situation where several have lost their jobs. But sincerely, several have lost their jobs, but new jobs are being created every day. So the question is, once you reskill, you present yourself for new jobs that have been provided, especially once you reskill in automation complementing skills. Once you reskill in that, you have a lot of opportunity there for you. For example, in Lagos State University, there's a partnership with Lagos University, especially in particular the Lagos University Career Development Center, with UiPath and Red Out training, Red Out systems, in which individuals are trained on how to automate basic skills, processes rather. I was part of this training about for a few months ago, and sincerely, I would advise for anyone in Lasu, whether staff or student, if the management will be very magnanimous to open it up to everyone to learn. These are things that we can do now. You don't need coding skills to automate. And as you open up that plethora of opportunity for yourself, not just only on your job, even for your life. In fact, it applies to our health. Once you are flexible, or once you can make your work much more flexible, you don't have to sit down to do routine jobs. You can automate them and things will run as they should. Now, talking about automation completing skills, which are very needed to take advantage of the new skills, new career opportunities available. Talk about tech savviness. This is not a time for somebody or for any individual to say that, oh, I am not tech savvy, or I am not really interested in tech. It is now going forward a must. Creativity and innovation is a must for everyone to take advantage of the opportunity. Data literacy is a must. It is an automation complementing skills which is critical for everyone to have. Critical thinking. Organizations are not just looking for people that will just do routine jobs, but you need to take decisions that will make that will make impact on the businesses without having to recourse to your boss because you are working remotely. Now, digital skills are needed, coding skills are needed, of course, but leadership skills, emotional skills, and commitment to lifelong learning, they are very vital skills, especially to take advantage of the career opportunities going forward post-COVID-19. Now, the last but not the least of these opportunities, you have improved business continuity. With this, I give a clear example. Well, of course, we know about open, virtual, distant learning that we have learned, and we know that it has come to stay. So for the educational sector, it is not business as usual. Virtual learning have come to stay. With that, even if the schools are shut, either by any crisis, whether violence, pandemic, or strike action, learning can still continue. And with that, it is extending the opportunity, the ability of the institution to do much more than they would do physically. For the food industry, Jumia, for example, recorded about 30% increase month to month on their increase in volume, that is order volume. Now, even though they are not there physically, you can take orders virtually from anywhere. And also for the fintech, we will notice that several of us have noticed that several fintech kiosks are rising up every day. Even though you can't go to the bank and retail banking operations have ceased or have paused, but the fintech are taking advantage. I believe somebody listening to this virtual lecture already has a fintech kiosk, or you're thinking to have one. So these are opportunities created by post-COVID-19 or by COVID-19. Now the takeaways, as I conclude, 5 things are very critical. Automate your strategic business processes to build resilience and business continuity is a must. All workers and individuals must reskill to meet up with the current challenge. Now there's a need to aggregate data sources, and that is why there's a lot of fake news here and there. Now there's a need to aggregate data sources and to get value from data is very, very important. And also to strengthen information technology infrastructure and to conduct cybersecurity assessment and implement remediation. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I believe you have learned something. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jediron. We so much appreciate you. That was a very good one. And I want to once again appreciate all the speakers. They have all kept to time. So time management is really key in Lagos State University. And you have demonstrated that to us. So we are so grateful. Now, we're going to go to question time now. We are rounding up very soon. The lecture, the 15th virtual lecture of Lagos State University. And so I will be reading the questions. We have a couple of questions. Some were sent to me personally. So I'll just read them and call the attention of the person who should respond to them. The speakers, you can please unmute yourself and I will read the questions now. The first one goes to Manuel, Professor Masara. You talked about AI and that it might be very useful, or with the way using things, AI will come in and will be useful in teaching. Somebody said, could that lead to job loss when you need to engage machine like robots? And or what do you mean? Could I put some people's job under threat? So you may make notes and then you will respond to that. And second question for you, Prof, is that you propose to us use of progressive exam, like weekly exam, rather than final exams. And you actually hypothesize that, you know, final exams may need to be scrapped at some point, you know. So can you shed some light on that? Who, you know, is something we are thinking about. So the person who asked the question wants to know more. Would that be an issue to do with policy or something? So that is for Manuel. And now for Mr. Ojediron, there is a question there. It says, what can educational community do to ensure awareness, especially in rural areas where educational technology is not easily accessible? We're talking about, you presented, you know, neatly that we, without physical contact, education can carry on, and that seems to be the view of all the presenters today. But there are people who are disconnected. So is there any advice you have for the government or for us here? We have policy makers here, you know, who that could help those in the rural area. And the second question for you, Mr. Ojediron, I just read. It says, what is your advice for government on the harmonization of citizens' data previously collected by different organizations, e.g. banks, telecoms, you know, universities, INEC, etc., in such a way that it is also accessible to other organizations, immigration and the likes, that need such information without necessarily entering such data all over? I know you understand where this participant is coming from. Each time you visit a government agency, data is captured afresh. Even if you go to 20 different agencies, 20 times the same set of data is captured. So what can you advise on that? And I think there is a question for for Chief Oloniteru. Now, what role can education sector play in sensitizing government to budget for IT infrastructure that can cut across all towns and villages such that all Nigerian citizens can have equal access to IT? Now, that's the first question. Chief, you have two questions. The second one is, we are running out of time, so and I know we're taking the questions now. But the second question is, you mentioned about policy, new policies may come and stuff like that. And this person says, policy formulation may not be our problem in Nigeria, but actually implementation. What is your take on this? So I will take from Manuel, Professor Masara, you respond to those two questions. I go to Mr. Ojediron and then Chief Oloniteru in that order. Thank you.
Very interesting, very, very good questions. We'll try to summarize some ideas, but of course, otherwise we'll stay here all night to talk, because losing jobs and AI. What I meant, there is this risk. What I meant initially was something a little bit different, in the sense that artificial intelligence would help the organization of the teacher and on the day of the student. Imagine that if we go further with the flexible schedule, instead of going into the class at 9 a.m. to do calculus and 11 to do geometry, you can just wake up in the morning and your personal digital assistant would ask you what class you want to attend this morning, and you can, or maybe can even propose, according to your preference, that you prefer math in the morning and philosophy in the evening. So this kind of artificial intelligence, that is partial automation and partial support for people, for teachers and students. However, clearly, we are not that far from the replacement of teacher with artificial intelligence. If you see online, there are already some companies that are able to provide some alter ego, but these virtual teachers, they are only able to cover a very, very, very specific subjects. They can answer questions on very, very specific subjects. But you can imagine that in 20 years, maybe an artificial intelligence can deliver a class like an average teacher. Excellence, I'm not sure, because if you look, for example, at the car race, autonomous vehicles competition, not just the regular taxis that we have in Nopolis, there are also studies about racing cars. The big deal, it's about the overtaking. So when you take a human champion, the human champion is always better than the automatic car when there is some risky and unusual action to do. For example, overtaking another car. So far, human is still better. And also, I think that in teaching, humans, excellent teachers are better. But maybe in 20 years, we can have some artificial intelligence able to replace an average teacher. Then this means that we will fire all the teachers and use artificial intelligence. So when you deploy a technology that can replace humans, there is always a question that is not technological, political, because when you automate, you have two options. Either you create more unemployment or you create more leisure time. And it's all about the distribution of wealth. Clearly, if you automate to dismiss people, you concentrate the wealth in some hands. And if you instead create more leisure time, you distribute the wealth. But this is a political decision. Technology just replaces routinary activities that humans are too smart to do. And so there is a risk that eventually we can replace teachers with artificial intelligence. But then it's politics that has to intervene. Regarding the second question about scraping final exams, I'm not suggesting right now scraping final exams, but what I noticed is that this year was very difficult. We had basically one semester in which we did fully online education, including online exams. And it was very difficult to do the exams. It was very difficult to proctor the students, to be sure that they are not cheating. It was extremely difficult. Okay, you can put them on camera, but they are smart. They can find ways to go through it. So I was suggesting that if we are still not ready fully to automate the proctoring of the exam for online education, but there are systems. For example, in Russia, there one is called Examus, if I'm right. So there are systems that they check the audio, the camera, the eye movements, that they can sort of monitor the student while doing the exams. In England, I know that some people that are studying remotely during the exam, they are asked to put a mirror behind to be sure that they are not reading anything. But you can bypass these systems. You can always find a cheat. So if we don't find soon a way to do online exams, we can just replace them with the project assessment along the way. There are projects maybe in groups. So you already accept that there is interaction between students.
Thank you very much, Prof. So thank you. We really appreciate you. In the interest of time, I quickly go to Mr. Ojediran.
Thank you, sir.
Can you quickly within 1 minute to respond to the questions. Yes.
Thanks so much, sir. For the first question, how do we ensure rural integration to this ICT move? Now, I think this is one area that even the government had been sensitive to, though there's a lot to be done. Now, the first thing to do to solve radio, the radio airwave seem to be the most widespread network currently in Nigeria. Thereafter, we have the mobile and then the internet, because definitely ICT will drive on the network, the internet particularly. But for now, the radio seem to be a solution for those in a rural area that cannot access internet or go online, as the case may be. But now, quickly, the government needs to probably look into this. One thing that has been a challenge in ensuring that there's a full distribution of internet everywhere is the right of way. The cost of right of way is quite expensive, and most organizations, most companies are finding it very difficult to obtain that permission. So when government say that this is a critical need, not just only for states, but for the entire nation and everywhere. So I think a concession will be given, should be given in that area to read that. Quickly to the second question of proliferation of data and value from data. Now, this is a very pain area. And in my slide, I said something about getting value from data. Now, most of the data that are being collected, they were collected just for the immediate use of that particular agency. There's a need for government to sit down and harmonize and have a concrete data policy for Nigeria. And if it exists, which I know it does, there's a need to now work on the implementation so that any agency of government that is gathering data now going forward is to search that has this data been collected elsewhere before? Now, if it has been collected, can it be accessed? And that comes to a point where the nation needs we need a uniform database, as well, a uniform data archive, where data from different agencies are established and they are interconnected, so that if an agency needs data that is already connected, you don't need to connect it again. And really, it's not just about even collecting the data also, but also making meaning out of this data is something. Analytics is something that we really need to look into as individuals, as organizations, and as a nation, getting value from data. A quick one for data for the government, also for academic institution. The NUC and TED Fund probably can now look into this to fund critical ICT backbone infrastructure in universities, so that universities can piggyback on this infrastructure to enable their digital adoption. I think this will also help. Thank you so much, sir, for the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jediron. Chief Olonitero, up to you. 1 minute.
Yes, thank you very much. The way I'm going to answer the question brief to capture the whole something is that I can see that there's a lot of mismatch. And it will address both questions sent to me and that sent to the last speaker on data harmonization. What I have seen is that a lot of Nigerians don't know what is happening in this administration, especially the intangible asset of the administration. And that is principally due to the Ministry of Information and National Orientation Agency not doing its work in communicating to Nigerians, which is bringing about the problem of the digital divide. And what I mean by that is that, one, the Ministry of Information and National Orientation Agency needs to let Nigeria know what the USPF, Universal Service Provision Fund, is doing to fund ICT broadband rollout in Nigeria, to address many of the issues that we are talking about. And they are actually doing it, but we are not assessing it enough because people don't know. And I can give a lot of examples. Even very recently, I personally was surprised that NCC, USPF went and built an ICT center in my village. That they called me from the village. I've not been to my village for over 1 year. And it's there. They built it for something. So mean that the government is working. If I don't know in my village, they go to my village name to myself. How come they don't know? Is this thing communicated to Nigerians? That is number one. Number two, the harmonization of data. Today we have the NIMC, no longer in the presidency, in Federal Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. And they are already harmonizing data because the NIMC is handling foundational data, while TBN and other people are handling functional data. there are already harmonization taking place as we speak today because NIMSI is under there. So it's not just about the policies are being designed there and they are not being in action. I know and participate a lot in this government, so I know what I'm talking about. So I'll talk about the broadband now, the USPF provisions, which is addressing those things, already been implemented. There is Financial Act of 2020, there is the Complaint and Matter Act 2020, another enabling law that have been implemented by a lot of Nigerians, including educated or supposed Nigerians, not aware of this that they keep on asking questions. So my answer in conclusion is that Nigerians need to be more put into awareness, training, capacity building on so many of the intangible things that is handling in government space, not just bridges that they can see, houses that is constructed, everything that they can see would be something, inanimate things that is definitely. So many of the things that we're saying is not happening. With all due respect, they are happening in the reality. If voting now, there's a whole lot happening in it. INEC has placed order for things to be done and things are happening there. But how many Nigerians in the villages or even in the cities know that voting is happening or what voting is all about? So it is not that those policies are not should not be there. They are there, but people need to be aware of them. So that is where even our universities, they need to do a lot of work in that regard, because if, for example, in computer science department, we are still teaching students applications and software systems that are into the centralized information system, whereas we're talking about decentralized and blockchain, then how are we going to know that things are happening in the economy? So in summary, government departments like Ministry of Information and National Orientation Agency need to communicate effectively and continuously to Nigerians that these policies are not only being made, they are actually being implemented. For example, right of way. A lot of state governments have reduced the right of way charges. So if it has done like it has happened in the Ekiti state, for example, then what are we talking about? When we are not asking that it's expensive, it's expensive. So when the information from government has been updated, how come that people are supposed to know, don't know about it? Then, for example, in the same Ekiti state, there is fiber optic rollout there, there is safe city, that policies need to be made. NCC stopped the state government from being able to put that infrastructure for the GRA and the Ekiti state environment to use, because it's talking about NCC, because they have some other parameter issues. That is why some of the things we're talking about federalism. Why should NCC dictate that we must use GSM if we want to use other technology? So policy need to be made, National Assembly need to make enabling law so that Nigeria can move forward positively. Why do I need to pay for GSM if I can pay a local rate within Ekiti, within Akure, within Ibadan, within Lagos, by instead of paying the same rate of somebody who is calling from Lagos to Abuja? That's price discrimination. CDMA, the NCC killed it and promoted GSM, gave them 7-year moratorium. And we know that CDMA, code division multiple access, is a data-centric technology as compared to voice-driven technology from the GSM aspect. And we became technology biased rather than technology neutral. These are policy formulation issues that if we don't address them, then Nigeria is going to be in a lot of deep shit. So in summary, both design, policy formulation, and implementation are taking place, but they are not communicated to Nigerians, and we need to address that issue. Thank you very much.
Superb. Thank you very much, Chief. We so much appreciate you. We're rounding up now, and I will just share this last slide, and then I give appreciation, and then we call it a day. So far, a lot has been said, and I appreciate all the speakers. It's a fact that we have chosen the right speakers. They are carefully selected experts. But summary, this is not exhaustive. Just some points, 11 points. Online teaching has come to stay. No matter what you do, that's a reality. It's so obvious. And maybe nobody will be thinking about this if COVID-19 has not come. Final exams may have to be replaced. We know it's not a total replacement advocated, but we need to think about progressive exams. It doesn't have to be weekly, but progressive exams, and that has lots of benefits. I may not have time to go through this. Projects may need to be emphasized, to allow students to acquire practical skills. Many students seem to prefer online and blended, prefer that to physical. I know environment could vary, but this seems to be a fact, because you can actually stay at home without going out, and you can acquire, degrees without physically visiting a university. AI, and technology, digital technology can help in teaching and learning, is a fact. more people will use ICT. Oh, that is very obvious. But we need skills upgrade. That is very necessary. And in every facet of life, in education in particular, because that's part of our focus today, we need to upgrade IT skills among everybody in the university or higher institution, primary, secondary school community. Is very important because online teaching has come to stay. 7, new policies may need to be formulated, to promote ICT. And of course, there is a need to shout out to better implement them. And we need to increase budget for cybersecurity and internet infrastructure. That is extremely important. And I know that we have some policy makers on the platform as participants. So that should go down well with everybody. We need budget, budgetary allocation, for ICT. And now we need, number 9, to start to use data for informed decision. And this data, integrated data, federated identity, things like that must now come to play. This is the right way to go. We're having this meeting now, this lecture. We are not together physically, but we can gather data, we can do anything. If not for ICT, this wouldn't have been possible. So better use of data is necessary to inform policy, to inform decision. 10, one but last, COVID-19 has opened job opportunities. So don't think that is all that is bad about COVID-19. But there are job opportunities that is opened. So I was so excited, when one of the speakers said, you do not need to actually be a coder. You don't need knowledge of coding to get a job in ICT industry. So you just need to upgrade your skills. You just need to identify the opportunities. There are so many of them there. And flexibility in career. You can now be at home study and work from home. This has been on for several years in the developed nation, but now with COVID-19, we now know that you can stay at home and still deliver. You don't need to be in the office, physically. We know that physical contact has its own benefits. So this is just a summary of what has been delivered today. And I will be appreciating I would just want to appreciate some set of people first as we wrap up now. I want to appreciate the Vice Chancellor for giving us the opportunity, Professor Olariwaju Adigun Fagbon, the entire Directorate of ICT. We say thank you, sir. And I want to thank our only able Director of Research and Innovation. I must confess, is the main man behind this. Is the chairman of COVID-19, team. There's a technical team set up by the university, and Professor Olumuyiwa Odusanya leads the team. So he's the one who has been facilitating everything. So I give you a big credit, and I really appreciate you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. My head of department, Dr. Eniko May, our main host. What can we do without you? So you have made it happen again. We appreciate you, Dr. Eniko May. To the fantastic speakers, I don't think we could get better sets, so we have identified carefully, the big brains, and we want to thank you, Chief Oloniteru, Mr. Ojediran, and my friend, Professor Manuel Masara, all the way from Russia. You are most welcome. And for the fantastic participants, the audience, all over, we can see people connected from the US, from UK, from here in Nigeria. So I appreciate all of you. We are so grateful from the Directorate of ICT in Lagos State University. And we wish all of you a wonderful afternoon or evening, depending on where you are, or morning, depending exactly where you are. So with that, we call it a wrap. So I